Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your Sensei Al Bob. And I am your griot to tell you a story. And I was on for about 40 minutes or so, and I was testing the waters, right? I was throwing lots of interesting stuff. Well, there's one person there. And it got stuck because I guess I was talking about things that someone, remember, don't believe a word I say, right? Everything on this channel is simply for your entertainment's sake, right? And like I said, don't believe a word I say, right? And I'm here to just tell you a story. And this channel is not for those with a childish, infantile, moron mind, right? So any of you children with infantile, moron minds should leave the channel now. Right? This is not for the faint at heart. Well, now we're down to 0. So come on, let's see some people, right? So let's tell you a story. You like my stories. Let's see. How did I meet my first wife? That was interesting. I've had amazing women in my life. My whole life has been that of amazing women, from my grandma to my mom to my Aunt Gracie, to teach my kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Gerling, Olga Kluver. Let's see who else. And she, and all the women, that I was, amorously connected to, were great women too, and that's because, we are now at a time, good old Mr. Putin, he had a nice speech about how, you know, he was putting down communism, and got to realize that communism, Marx and Engels, who put that that theory together, did it in England, right? And they were being funded by English aristocrats, right? Because they were kind of poor guys. And when the Russian Revolution happened during World War I, right, and Russia was England and France's ally, England took Lenin and Trotsky out of jail. That they were in Canada, and they took them out of jail there, put them on an English man of war, told the Germans, hey, do not sink this boat. We are taking these guys into Russia to ferment a revolution, because basically socialism, communism, communism is state capitalism, basically. And that is the worst of all economic systems you can have. So when you have an up-and-coming capitalist society with a monarchy and a well-educated populace, not all, because Russia mostly was serfs, but they had a well-educated middle class and a scientific engineering class, and an artistic class, and a business class. And Russia, and they had oil, lots of oil, and they had lots of other minerals. And Russia was going to be a real competition to the crony capitalism that was the Anglo-American form of capitalism. And the English crony capitalism was you'd almost want to call it socialism, because it was basically crony capitalism, which is socialism, right? And the socialist state is there for the crony capitalists, and so World War I was one of those, transitional moments. So was, the Civil War. So was the Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, Korean War. They're just all the same war. It was to introduce, the New World Order, globalism, Mr. G. And go read anything that Catherine Austin Fitts has to say, right? So, anybody interested in a story? Well, seemingly everything works. So every woman in my life has been extraordinary. Like the first woman, my grandma brought me up. My mom, was my mom. My Aunt Gracie was my mom's best friend, and she was like Auntie Mame to me. She had this great little apartment in Tudor City in New York, and whenever I could go on the train, and she'd pick me up at the station, and she'd take me to theater and to museums, and show me an interesting part of the universe. Along that my grandma did on the other side of the universe, right? And that's why I am kind of man out of time, the stranger in a strange land. I was brought up here, but I am not one of the here people, right? I'm awake, I'm aware, consciously aware, and I am aware of the fact that somewhere between 20 and 40% of every day I'm a moron, and the other 60 to 80% I'm consciously aware and consciously intent of my service to love's co-creation, right? And that is the work in progress. That's why we're all here. This is a sandbox. This ain't nothing but a simulation, and if you're aware of your presence, you can actually do some good work here. And that good work is to prepare yourself to ascend, meaning if you're unconscious, when you die, you're just going to be thrown into the blender of karma, boom, boom, and then pop out and, be a mud puppet again and again and again, just like Shakespeare's Macbeth constantly, the end of Macbeth, he's killed everyone. He's sitting on the throne. His good buddy goes, we won. Oh, it's Macbeth. Why are you so glum? And now, Macbeth was always a glum kind of guy. And he basically said, it's about tomorrow. And he says, what about tomorrow? Tomorrow we're going to be in charge. We're going to do whatever we want, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, no, you don't understand. It's not only tomorrow. It's the tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. Meaning there is no future for poor Macbeth. He is stuck. After doing all that terrible stuff, he's stuck. He can't do anything but be that guy. Whereas if you're awake, if you're consciously intent on doing love's co-creation, you won't do all that terrible stuff. You won't be that egocentric person. You won't be that sociopath, You will take a vow that you will never, I took a vow. I was very well trained in many things. And at a certain point, I realized I'm not going to be that assassin. I'm not going to be that hitman for the IMF. I'm not going to be, that character that, I was sent to, the seminary to be, that I was sent to the super uber special, prep school for the rich and powerful children. My sophomore year, Joseph Kennedy was my roommate. And the guy was dumb as a brick. All he wanted to do was jack off. So he wanted me to go, soon as the lights out, he wanted me to go to sleep so he could jack off. And I would be reading a book. And he go, why do you read so many books? I said, well, kind of helps me think. He said, I'm a Kennedy. I don't need to think. Now, don't believe a word I say. Remember, this is all a story. It's a comic book. It's a comic book, And I was watching something on one of those platforms about this oh yeah, it was pretty interesting. It was, this couple, this girl inherits this little house, you know, a ticky-tack little house, and I get in there and it's like a jumble of stuff. The guy's a hoarder. And as they're cleaning it out, this guy finds boxes and boxes of these, drawings of a comic book. And it's, like a manga kind of, or an anime kind of comic book. And it's got this really super hidden crew that are interested in it. And this is, they find, so anyway, and I saw the first 20 minutes and it got knocked off. And I keep watching. There was another show about magic. I watched the first 20 minutes, it got knocked off. And I can't find it again. It's like I'm being left these little crumbs on these platforms of these shows that are pretty interesting. The rest of them are like boring as hell. And the ones that I can watch continuously, and it's like, really? And that's my life. I am constantly given this information that helps me stay aware and awake and try and talk to you guys, but nobody's on watching and no one's chatting and no one seems to care, But that's okay, because I know people go back and watch it later on. And I would suggest that you guys, because they've taken, my friend Cliff High, that seems to be why no one's watching right now. But it doesn't say it says I'm connected and everything's fine, but no one seems to watch. And what time is it anyway? It is, come on. It's not quite 9. I said I would come on between 7:30 and 8:45, and I did, and I was first on for about 40 minutes, and then I started saying things that I guess somebody didn't like. Not so much you, the audience, but some algorithm. And I have a bunch of Cliff Hyde in my RAM. And I played this show that was from December 2019 when he was describing the 19. And, before anyone knew it in America, before it was on, news porn, So anyway, this is a great opportunity for you, audience, to wake up. Come on. Don't you want to have some fun? I mean, I like it when you guys chat, But, there's one person. Hey, guy, who's there? You want to say something? I want to start a chat. I've been telling stories here. I came on earlier and I was saying I read the first 9 pages of one of my novels, and that might have upset people because I was, my writing is like James Joyce on acid, right? And a lot of people who read it go, "This is artwork." I'm looking for somebody who wants to publish this, and some people go, unless it's, pablum, no, you're not going to have a large audience, But what I write is, and then the other side of the coin, oh, this is art. I could never touch it. I could never edit it. I could never do it. It's so, okay. So it's interesting. Yes. Okay. But I want people to read it. And I put it on, griotpublishing.blogspot.com. And then Google bought that and they changed all the processes. It used to be easy to put stuff on and easy to go and read stuff. Now, not so much. And that's why I would say within the year, the internet, there's going to be a real meltdown of the internet. Jordan, good to see you. Is that your house? No, I'm babysitting. These are my Christmas lights here, but a friend of mine went to visit her kids in Nevada. And lucky that girl went, she went about 2 weeks ago when it was still 60 degrees here. Now it's 18 at night and 30 to 40 during the day. And she's in this, and I keep telling her, stay there as long as you want. So I'm keeping the house warm enough, but not too warm. Don't want to run up her bills. And I'm keeping it just warm enough so the pipes won't freeze. And I'm taking care of her animals. And that's kind of what I'm doing. And she has the internet, so I can talk to you. Cool. Happy holidays. Yep. So, Jordan, have you been watching my channel lately? And has anything struck your interest? Have you been able to go to xratted.blogspot.com or griotpublishing.com and looked at my novels? I'd like some feedback. Do you know who Cliff High is? Or have you ever watched Dark Journalism or Purely Graceful Lee? Those are some of my favorite YouTube channels. And have you ever read any books by David Icke or Joseph P. Farrell or Catherine Austin Fitz? Do you know anything about The Breakaway Civilization? Or how about, are you a Marvel fan, and did you see the Captain America films, and did you, see, were you a fan of the Captain America comics, and were you a fan of the X-Men comics? Because that's actually what's going on. The Nazis were doing genetic engineering back then. The Nazis went into space in the late 30s, early 40s. And their whole war plan was to disrupt the, global everything through World War II. I mean, basically, the whole, the Civil War, the Spanish-American War, First World War, Second World War, Korean War, Vietnam War, Afghanistan, Iraq, and then Syria and the Arab Spring. These were all orchestrated by the hidden hand, Hail Hydra, and that's kind of what's going on in the world right in front of your face, And the next, interesting thing that's going to happen, like within, I would say, probably 2020, maybe 2023, is we're going to be invaded by aliens, but it's going to be totally a holographic Hollywood, pretty much like when the Tower of Babel on 9/11 fell down. That was, a total Hollywood extravaganza, All you have to do is read Architects and Engineers' Truth for 9/11, and those guys really told the story. Whereas the congressional, they weren't even going to have an investigation. But so many people who died, their families were so upset they had to. And I was an apprentice electrician on the World Trade Center, so I know that building was not taken down by an airplane. It was designed to be able to get hit by two 707s within, a day, in the same moment, and the fire that was there, that was a steel concrete building. Up until that day, no steel concrete building ever collapsed. There were buildings, there was one in Brazil that burned for 21 days and never collapsed. Everything in it burned to a crisp, but nothing collapsed, right? It was kind of bent and spindled and mutilated, but, when it was a big high rise, 40, 50 stories, and it did not collapse. Whereas three buildings, no steel and concrete building ever collapsed. Empire State Building hit by a B-25 in the 1930s, and it did not collapse, And I tune in once in a while for interesting stream of consciousness. Yep, that's all I do. And also fun to have on background while driving around for what? Yep, exactly. And that's what a lot of people say, and I do that, meaning, like I said, my friends who have really, really good shows, they either like, Max Igon, who had, Dark Crow or Black Crow That channel was excellent. He's gone. I have no idea where they took him. My friend, oh, you know, uh, Cliff High, his show is truly interesting. And, they took him off YouTube. Then he was on other platforms. They took him off those. And now he's got, he's in the wind, but he still kind of bounces around. And he totally changed he doesn't use any words that the algorithm can go after. And he invented his own language of talking about things. And still they went after him, right? And then you have people like Dark Journalism and Shirley Graceful. Those are excellent channels. And I play them every now and then, just, like straight from my phone to you guys to kind of say, hey, take a look at these guys, right? And, but me, myself, and I, what I do is before I go on air, I go into state and, there's this cloudiness all around, right? This is etheric energy that I'm pumping into the internet. That's what I'm doing. And I'm telling stories to be entertaining. And it is a stream of consciousness. I'm not thinking about, any real, once in a while I'll have a bee in my bonnet and I'll go after it. But mostly I just tell you stories and don't believe a word I say. This channel is just for entertainment's sake. Oh, look, 21 minutes and 21 seconds. I love it when that happens. And you can get a hold of me personally. Hey, Jane, on my email at thedudeawake42@gmail. Thedudeawake42@gmail. All one thing, all small. And if you want to throw anything on my PayPal, which I could truly use something, because that 6 days before the end of the month and that 6 days after, I usually have no money whatsoever. So you ever want to throw something, that's the window of opportunity where I can really use it. And you folks who have sent me, and many of you have, I have to thank you. And what's truly interesting, whatever you send me is always just enough to get me through, right? So that's me. So, and a lot of people watch this, binge watch this show, and it's like a wallpaper. They'll have it on all day long, and I'm just like going on and on and on. And I would suggest there was a guy named Dragon who was truly a sweet, nice guy. I think he was from Canada. And he dreamt about this show when he was 11 years old. And he drew pictures of me and the things I talk about. And then at 32, he saw the show and it blew his mind. And I said, guys, you should, put this show on your hard drive, stick it on your thumb drive, put it down there for history, just in case one day, like I have a lot of friends who had really much more interesting channels than me, and like Cliff Hyde and Max, and they're gone, and, but they had lots of people watching. They had hundreds of thousands of people watching me, 50, 100, which is fine because there's 540 of you guys who are part of the cadre, right? And there are about 100 of you who connect to me through the email and talk to me every day. And they are my adepts, meaning I want to know about, I want to learn magic, or I want to learn, shamanism. I want to learn, alchemy, right? And I say, Kang, you can't, it's not like taking a course, at college, any of these things. So I am a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist. What is that, right? So, shamanism isn't a religion. It's a worldview. It's how you view things, right? Psychology, what is psychology? It's the study of how your psyche views your reality, and then they turned it into a business plan by giving certain things names, so we can say there's something wrong with you and you need this pill and you need to come to therapy, for the next 70 years of your life and pay me $120 a session, No. Psychology is the understanding of your mental perspective of what your senses tell you you're seeing. And your senses are very limited. Our present, water bag senses can see 0.00049% of the universe. That's all we get. Back in the day, we had no idea about radio waves, infrared, microwave, gamma rays, all of those things that were affecting us. We had no idea what it was, not a clue. But certain people like Tesla and Madame Blavatsky and Madame, the girl who discovered radium and the nuclear universe, Madame Curie, they saw it in their dreams and they pursued their dreams. And that's, when you are consciously aware, when you have conscious intent. And that's what you can do. You can define your reality. You can define the life you want instead of having to accept the crap that you're being given to, And that's what's going on right now. All around us, the supply chain is, it's just kind of, all those people, it's, all the Democrats want to do is tax and spend, and, do that, America will be Europe soon, We are being pushed into, like I said, next election, the NICP is going to win, National Insane Clown Party, right? And that's not Republican or Democrats. It's two wings of the same bird. Read Gary Allen's book, None Dare Call It Conspiracy. Go read Dr. Quigley's book, Hope and Tragedy. He was the main brain of what's the name of those guys? It'll pop into my mind. Anyway, there's nobody watching now. I lost the string to your minds. So come on. Let's see. Hi, y'all. Sensei Al Bob and cadres. Yeah. So there's about 100 of you who are my adepts, who I talk to pretty regularly, and they actually talk to me about how they feel, what they're thinking, what they think about what I say. And then I kind of tell them things that why don't you look this up? Why don't you read this book? And they actually go do that. And then they actually get back to me and talk to me about how it's affecting them. And then I tell them something else. And they go, wow, and it kind of has been opening their minds. And they have, in the last year, and I've been doing this now since 2018, end of September of 2018 is, I think, when I started. And so I have 100 adepts from that period on. And every now and then, like now, when I have access to being on the internet whenever I want to, and I have this thing called, they get a hold of me and my email, the dudeawake42@gmail, dudeawake42@gmail, the dudeawake42@gmail. Okay, so that's where you can get a hold of me, and that's where they do, and that's where we have nice, intimate conversations, right? And they have been, pretty much amazed, how their life has changed and how they actually have control of their life. They're no longer being, their string, their little mud puppet string has been clipped. And the only line that's left is their gold thread that goes up to their Akashic records. So you have your shamanic worldview. And what is that worldview of the shamanic? It's a frame that we are connected to all our relations. That means everybody. That means every plant, every animal, every life thing, and everything has a consciousness. They've done experiments like, if you think about someone for the morning, and I got to call so-and-so, and you think about them. I'm going to call them. And then you finally get the time, you call them, it rings, they pick it up and go, I was just thinking of you. They've done experiments, that show that works. When you have conscious intent, you actually have an effect on things like 80% of the time. And back in the day when I was 19 in 1969, and I graduated from high school in 1968, and I'd gone a little bit of college, but it was like I'd already done everything. I'd already been, I already had like a master's degree. I had really good education from from before kindergarten, from when I was like 6 on, because I had a cardinal who was my godfather who wanted me to be a rocket scientist or priest. So he stuck me in a Maryknoll lodge, this group of Maryknoll priests and nuns who were scholars. They weren't nuns. They weren't like trying to control or torment or torture or rape anybody. They were looking for, that's why I learned about, love's co-creation through the Maryknolls, right? And that's why I learned how to, read Greek and Latin, and then I went off to, parochial school where a nun nearly murdered me, crushed my esophagus, broke my jaw, broke my left orbit, and really whacked the crap out of this ear. And, I was in a hospital for a good chunk of that year, and they stuck my head because I was a little peanut of a guy. My head the sutures hadn't really gotten, turned into concrete. They put my head in a helmet and kind of, so my head wouldn't look weird. And I had to keep that helmet on, so I couldn't see out of this eye, and I couldn't wired. And then when I did, because she crushed my esophagus, I didn't have the wind to speak. I spoke very quiet, and I stuttered. And that's when I was sent off to the Maryknolls, and they like reprogrammed me, and I was, yes, after that. Yep. Mm-hmm. Then I ended up in a public school that was, truly an amazing public school, because it was an experimental school, and they we had art and music and science, and I studied biology in 6th grade, and then 4 or 5 years later, when I was in high school at a private school for the rich, the people who were going to rule the world, I took biology there, and the biology that I had in 6th grade was as good or better than the stuff I was learning in that super, entitled prep school, right? I went to school with Ricky Lynch and Eddie Merrill at Merrill and Lynch, Alex Orb, whose family owned U.S. Steel, Perry Dye, whose family owned Seagram's, Joe Kenny, my roommate sophomore year. It just, and there were all 130 of us, and we were all the elite of the elite, and we were the screw ups of the elite, and this school was a very gilded cage, meaning we couldn't, and we went to school every day, Monday, every day. We had time off, we had sports, we had different things, but we were in school, Monday through Sunday, and because of that, our school year was relatively short. We started end of September, almost October 1st, and we stayed there until Christmas. We got off a week and a half for Christmas. We came back, we left December 20th and came back January 10th, right? Something like that. And then we stayed there until May, right? And I did that for 3 years. And there were certain teachers. I had some really great teachers there. But the Maryknolls, and that public school I went to were probably the best education I had. So when I went to college, I had already read all the books, I had already all of that, right? But my voice and my eyes and certain things were still a bit screwed up. Right now you hear me speak, and I speak very well because I'm very well read, and but I have a, I don't really stutter like I used to stutter, but I still have pauses, and there's certain consonants and vowels I can't pronounce because the wind doesn't go through my mouth the right way, right? Because my jaw is broken and the orbit here in my ear. So my eye, this eye doesn't, I don't have the depth perception most people have. I have 6 and above. This eye sees frequencies of light that other people can't see, right? So I can read people's auras, I see them, because the nun, you know, and it changed the shape of that and squeezed my eyeball. And I have neuropathy and I have diabetes and I have diabetic eyes and I have all this stuff that I should be blind. And the eye doctor is like pretty amazed that I can still see. But he realizes I see in way different ways. And that's so they kind of take care of me and they give me these procedures that would cost $1,800 a pop. But they don't. They made me a guinea pig, right? And I take this other diabetic medicine that's way better than all the other crap they have. And again, it would be $2,000 a month if I paid for it. But my endocrinologist guinea pig. So I mean that's how my life is. I serve love's co-creation, and I've died 6 times already. I probably have another 3 left in me. So I got another 20 years. Now I'm busted up. I mean, I went and saw a guy I hadn't seen in 4 years. And the last time I saw him, I had clamps on my legs and, I walked with a walker, right? And I walked in there and I'm wearing regular shoes. I have no clamps on my legs and I don't have a walker. And my podiatrist and my bone doctor all are like amazed that because I have charcoal legs, meaning, but between my knee and my big toe, my bones are mush. I mean, how do I stand up? You look at the x-ray and you couldn't believe I could walk, but I do. Because I serve love's co-creation. I'm consciously aware, and my conscious intent is to always serve love's co-creation. Not my ego, so I live like a millionaire on $400 a month, right? And so this Thanksgiving, I have a tradition. There's a service place that feeds the poor, and when I lived in this neighborhood, I used to every Christmas and every Thanksgiving and every holiday they would feed people. I would go and cook. So I went there and cooked Wednesday, right? And saw a few of the old timers were there. We had a lot of fun cooking. And early in the morning, I was there to get it ready to be served for the afternoon. But I went to services, and then I went on and had Thanksgiving dinner at the super duper fancy schmancy rich people hotel. And a friend of mine, runs their food services there and gave me a gift card so I could have a meal there. And a lot of the people that place used to be one of my clubhouses, and a lot of people I knew who worked there still did. So it was really like all home. Both places were like all home week. So, I served, love's co-creation in both places. In the really super poor people who were unbelievably depressed, and the super rich people who were depressed, and the people who worked there who were happy to see me, right? Because I told them stories, because I got there about an hour before. I mean, they were all ready, and so we were all sitting around the bar, and as the rich people came in and said, I'd like a drink, and they would say, oh, sorry, the bar isn't open till 1:30. But we were all drinking, Bloody Marys. So that's how my life rolls, So I know, I understand my mortality. I've died 6 times. 3 of those times, I remember my life review, right? And the last 2 times, I saw my life review, and I had been tired. I was done. I was toast. I was ready to just, be happy on the other side. And my, my master, Akasha K, and now he's not God or anything. He's just an ascended master. He's like a few rungs up on the ladder. And he's been with me since I was a little boy. The first time I hypnotized myself, I was sitting on my bed, getting ready to go to public school. And we had to walk about a mile from our house up this lane to the road where the bus picked us up, right? And now everyone, their mother or father drives them to school, right? So anyway, or drives them to the bus stop and has them in the car if it's raining or snowing or cold until the bus shows up. Us, not so much. We had to slog through the snow, through the rain, we were like the postman. And, that's what made me strong, So, and that's been my life, my whole frigging life. So I died when I was born. My mom's umbilical cord was wrapped around my neck, and the moron doctors were trying to pull me out with salad tongs, and they were about to pop my head off like a tick when this female doctor pushed them out of the way, stuck her hands in my mother's uterus and turned me around in utero and then delivered me. And then, did the right thing and took me off to, she put me on a drip and, put me in an oxygen, basket and warmed me up and I was good to go. But that trauma at birth, I died, and she brought me back to life. And that trauma made me a little mushroom for the first 10 years of my life. And I was always sick. Then when I was 8, I was, however old you are when you're in first grade, I was murdered by a nun who was a Nazi. She had come through the rat line through the Vatican, and she was a death camp assassin, She was called the Milkmaid of Death, and, I kind of pissed her off, and she grabbed me by the neck, put me up against a cinder block wall, and just, right? And luckily, just at that time, a garbage truck ran into the side of the building and through this gigantic plate glass window of our classroom. And what was happening, it was during, the Cold War, and every other day in this school, they had a get under your desk nuclear, exercise. And, we were like blocks from the Empire State Building, which would have been ground zero for a Russian hydrogen bomb. And we would have been toast, no getting under no duck and cover was going to protect us from that. And so I wouldn't, at 6, my father took me, he was in the Air Force. He was a colonel. He said, "Hey, you want to go to Edwards? I got to go to Edwards. You want to go?" And I loved going with my father to Air Force bases because he would hand me off to a lieutenant or a sergeant who would let me sit in a F-85 or a B-52 or, run around a missile silo, I mean, that's where I learned my love of aircraft and technology. And so at 6, I saw above ground, one of the last above ground nuclear tests in Nevada. And so I knew what it looked like. I remember I was this little guy. It's like 3 a.m. We're out in this parking lot, and they turn away from ground zero. We all turned away. And I was wearing a lead, blanket. And I was, totally covered in Vaseline. I had welding goggles on, and boom, that flash of light was so bright. I saw all the people who were in the parking lot facing this brick wall of the blockhouse. And the flash was so bright, it like etched our shadows onto the concrete wall. And then this big concussive wave, my dad kind of grabbed me so I didn't blow across the parking lot. And then he said, "Turn around." And I turned around, and still with the welding goggles, he said, "Put your hand up." And the x-rays, I could see the bones in my hand. So I understood what a nuclear weapon could do. And a hydrogen bomb was like 1,000 times stronger than the thing I saw. "Hey, Fish, And, I said to the nun, Sister Holy Roller Skate, listen, getting under my desk, to duck and cover, see that's the Empire State Building. They're going to hit that with a hydrogen bomb. That flash will incinerate us, right? Then the concussive ray will take that glass window there, which was a gigantic glass window, like 20 feet high, 30 feet wide, all these panes of glass, and not safety glass either, boom, and it will turn us into shards of bologna, and then the radiation will turn us crisp. So no getting under my desk, and no duck and cover is going to. And she kind of just grabbed me by the throat, put me up against the thing, and bam, 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 broke my jaw, broke my orbit, crushed the little bone in my ear. So I hear things that most people can't hear. I see things. I see people's auras with this eye, and I can't. My mouth can't tell a lie. But don't believe a word I say. Hey, Fish, it's good to see you, girl. Boy. Whatever gender you guys are. So, how about some more thumbs up? How about getting more people to watch this channel? And if you want to send something to PayPal or get a hold of me on my email, it's thedudeawake42@gmail. And right about this time is when I have, the 6 days before the end of the month and 6 days after is that little window when I've run out of my Social Security. But mostly I'm in the woods, so I never spend any money. But here now that I'm on the BOP, I'm spending probably $200 more than I normally spend. So anyway, that's where I'm at now. And but it's all good because I'm in a warm place. I got food in the fridge. I cooked today. I made a nice salmon and mushrooms, and I'll use that for the next 3 mornings making omelets and some nice Swiss cheese. And so, I got enough food to last me months without having to buy any more. But I like buying fresh vegetables. I still have some left. I got some onions and some basil, and I'm staying, to keep my colon nice. I'm staying away from tomatoes and bell peppers and eggplant. Even though I love those things, I have to stay away from them. And I have to, stay away from, and the whole grain bread chews up my colon like nobody. It's like eating razor blades. So the best bread I can eat is sourdough. So I cook that myself, So anyway, I'm happy where I'm at. I'm not going anywhere until my Social Security check. But if somebody could just throw something in my PayPal, that would be nice. Don't have to be a lot. Whatever you can afford. It's all good. So I was telling you about this guy, Dragon, who's from Canada. And he sent me these drawings that he did when he was 11. And he was 32 a year and a half ago. And so picture me telling stories, and a picture of the stories I was telling, a picture of the old crone's house on the other side of the bridge from the Akashic Records to, the sanctuary of my superconscious mind. He drew all of those at 11, 12 years before I started Dreamy Dreamland. And he sent them to me. And he also had taken my shows and put them on thumb drive so I could have them as a record. I had by that time probably done 400 or 500 shows. And I was speaking to him. And then this is when I was still living with John at the school. And all of a sudden, mysteriously, all those drawings he had disappeared, and along with the thumb drives. And somehow he was knocked off the channel, said, "Oh, you can't watch this," And he got a hold of me and said, "Why did you knock me off? I really love you." And I said, No, I didn't do that. I don't know what. This is when I really had no idea what I was doing. And I said, no, come back as and go get yourself another email thing and just come on back. And he did, and then somehow he got knocked off again, and he was really upset. And I don't know if John did that or the big bag boogeyman or whoever did it. And a number of people who were really very interesting that I wanted to, and I've now learned how to not screw. Whoops! I hope this chair doesn't fall apart underneath me. Anyway, so there's only one of you there and one thumbs up, and I've been doing this now for 50 minutes. So when it hits 60 minutes and 60 seconds, if I'm still just now, there's nobody here. If we don't quite get, more people chatting about more interesting things, I'm just going to go to sleep. But I'll be back. Like I said, I've got the access to the internet, so I'll be back. It'll be interesting. I did another show earlier before this one, and I read 9 pages from I've written 4 novels. Ear Hair, Legacy, Legend, and Work in Progress. And it's a series. Right? So if it's still up there, go and watch that. I read verbatim the 9 pages. And basically, I use words that people go, oh my God, he said that word. Oh, and I did it on purpose. I wrote it that way because I wanted to show what that word really, like the word nigger, right? That word. Oh my God, he said the N-word. Oh, no. If you look that word up, what does it mean? It means a stupid, ignorant person. Not a black person, a stupid, ignorant person, right? But the racist side of, and it's not racism in reality, because race is just the smokescreen of class and caste, right? And the fact that 98% of the public of this country are expendable, useless eaters, as Hillary Clinton said, basket of deplorables, and I wanted to use that word, and I put it in juxtaposition to show what that word really was. Not a black guy, but and every word I use in my writing, I wield a scalpel, right? I really do things, almost mathematically, and I misspell a lot of words on purpose, right? And I separate words, like boombox, right? Instead of having, the dictionary wants it to be one word, I put it boom and box. What is a box that goes boom, right? It's a bomb. So when you read, and the first story that seemed to get some traction was the Old Crone story. And in the beginning of that, there I was. How I met the Old Crone was I was in the Reserve Library of Trinity in Dublin, and I was reading these old, ancient Celtic and Greek books there. And because the Reserve Library at Trinity is a good chunk of what was left over from the library of Alexandria. And what's interesting, Alexander, he conquered the world, and every capital that he went in, he would build a library of Alexandria. He put libraries in all these. So it's, the Library of Alexandria wasn't just one thing, right? But, Nero, he used the scrolls of the library to heat the water for his bath. That's what he thought of, that. Yeah, the caste system's really big in India, and it's really big in the United States, and it's really big in pretty much every democratic country on this planet. We live in a corporate oligarchy. We the whole country, and we have to realize we don't have nation states anymore. We live in a transnational, global oligarchy. And so what's happening in India is happening here. Modi, once he got in after a year, about 5 years ago, he went on TV on a Friday night and said, okay, kids, it's 8 p.m. and I have just signed a law making cash illegal. From now on, all transactions will be electronic, done on your smartphone, right? And all you folks who've been keeping your money in that mattress, if your money isn't in the bank, that money that cash you have in your mattress, worthless. And if you kept it in the bank, paying taxes on it, it will be turned into electronic monetary transferal, like a debit card, But they went further and had it on the phone. China took it even further and use your face. They have more facial recognition in China than anywhere in the planet. And they, in the United States, we have a credit rating, right? And in China, they have a social rating. So if you do not do the things the state wants you to do, you will get, checks, So even if you're a millionaire, like that guy in Hong Kong, who was a billionaire, had the leading newspaper, he had all this money in the bank, but he couldn't do anything with it. Because he had so many, once they got serious with turning Hong Kong into China, and then they put him in jail. And no matter how good a lawyer he had, it didn't matter. He went to jail. Yep, like crypto. Yep. So, and it's going to be worse. I mean, Google already has stores in California where you walk in, you register, right? You put your debit card, your bank thing into the registration. They take your picture. You walk into the store and you pick what you want, and it has an RFID, and you either put it in a bag or whatever, and they have nobody working there. You just walk in and you take what you want and you walk out and it goes on your account. And that's how it's going to be. Spielberg did a movie with Tom Cruise where everything was like that. And what was it called? And they had these savant people hooked up to an AI, and they could see just into the future that when someone was going to do a crime, they could see it happen. So you would get arrested before you committed the crime, right? And there's a scene where, Tom Cruise, who's running this, he's a policeman and he's the administrator of this, and he's high up in the thing, and he finds something out about this, and he goes, oh, this is bad. And so the system goes, oops, we got to get rid of this guy. So they make him, enemy number one. So he's all over the big screens everywhere. And even though he's changed the way he looks, they still get him. And what was the name of that movie? And it was done like 10 years ago or even further, right? And so they've had an understanding of what's going on. I told you the story when I was at Cornell, and I was working as this, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist, meaning my bailiwick was to look at trends every which way, right? And I was really good at that. And I worked for Brookings and the CFR, Council for Foreign Relations. That was the thing I was thinking of, Trilateral Commission. And I wasn't per se working for them, like I was on their payroll. I was on the payroll of this entity in Cornell that was, a nonprofit entity that did research for all these guys. And my friend put me there. And the guy who ran that was a really amazing guy. And once he got to know me, he realized that I was like, one of his sharpest pencils, one of his greatest tools. And so he let me do whatever I wanted, however I wanted to do it. I mean, he would give me projects, but he would let me do it my way. And he would keep me up. He'd have people doing it the scholastic way, the scholarly way, the institutional way, and then there'd be me. And I was like the control. So and that's my favorite place to be that guy who has real access to a lot of information and can like use my gifts to see what it is. And then I would write about it and I would give it to him, nobody else, and he would take it and he would have his special crew take what I said and what these people said and put it together, right? So, I was there. So I could still be there today doing the same thing. I probably have his job by now. But two reasons why I wouldn't want that, I'm not there now, is that Ithaca, New York is in a place called the Finger Lakes, and they have this lake effect. And you can wake up in the morning, it can be sunny, it's 60 degrees. You go to class or teach a class or do research. You're in your little cubicle. You come out for lunch, and there's 4 feet of snow, and it's 20 degrees below zero. And we do that every day. Be nice, then terrible, right? And I can stand the cold, but I don't like the cold, right? So I can't help in there. I can't stand Tom Cruise. Well, Tom Cruise, I can understand why you can't stand him, but he does represent this kind of character. He's this, not every, he's not like Jimmy Stewart, but almost. He's like Jimmy Stewart in a more annoying way, right? Are too woke, yes. I hate that term, and you have to say woke. You can't say be awake. Awake. That's the word. Awake, not woke. Sorry, And I used to call myself a progressive, and now I can't call I hate every word I used to use. I can't use anymore. Crazy as hell. Actually, worse than crazy than hell. I don't know what is worse than crazy than hell, but it's worse, right? So anyway, in 1991, I was at Cornell, and no, I guess it was probably 89. It was not even in the 90s, 89. And my boss, and so, because of Ronald Reagan and Star Wars, Cornell is, you go to any national laboratory and there's a Cornell Avenue or Cornell Street, Cornell Boulevard. Cornell is it's like Stanford, or MIT. And in a lot of ways, it's more sophisticated, more regal than MIT. And so they built a thing called the Math Center, which was a 30-story building on the campus, and all the Cornell campus is very 19th century stone buildings, very nice kind of ivy covered things. And then there's this black monolith thing called the Math, and it has no windows, and it's like 30 stories above ground, like 90 stories underground. And you go in the front door, and the guys with machine guns and in uniforms, and you can't even, it's like more like Hail Hydra uniforms than, Air Force or Army or Navy or Marines. It's like, what kind of uniform is that? It looks like the SS, So anyway, and when first time I went in there, my boss said, these guys are, in room 1702, they want to show you something and have you give them your opinion of it. I said, because that's kind of after a year, that was like my bailiwick, right? And so I said, okay. And he goes, but before you do that, here he opens his drawer and he pulls out this like sealed envelope, and doesn't say top secret, but it's like very important. Do not open. The only person who can open this is the person who it's for. My name's on it. I open it up, and there's a little badge that goes around my neck. And on the badge was my picture. And, now when you want to get something, like at some restaurant and get the discount, they have that little square with all the squirrely little stuff. Well, that was invented to be unbreakable code and for access to only special access kind of things. Right now they got even more squirrely things. But anyway, in 1988. That was on my picture. No other writing, but that little square with the squirrely stuff in it. And he said, "You put this on. Go over there now. Do not take this off. If you walk through that door without that, they'll shoot you." So I said, "Okay, I'll make sure I'm wearing it and having it, displayed in prominent." So when I went through that door, I kind of took it out and held it out like this, like, "Look, guys, see, I belong here." And so I walked through the door. They pushed me in front of this scanning thing. And I said, "Just wait here a second." Somebody came and got me and took me up to that room. They put their thumb on a little thing. The door went, click, opened up, put me in. No windows. Comfortable chair, though. Nice desk. And some, bagels and coffee and, thermos, they were trying to be somewhat hospitable. And so, I'm sitting there sloshing on the schmur and eating bagels, going, man, they're not half bad. And these guys come in, two guys, one in like $3,000 suit, another guy, J.C. Penney suit. Guy in the J.C. Penney suit has a briefcase that's handcuffed to his hand, right? So they sit down, they put the briefcase there. The guy in a $3,000 suit, he puts his thumb on a little square on the briefcase, and the two things go, click, open up, pulls it out, and he pulls something like this. It was more like my other one. I mean, it was just it had no whoop-de-doo cover. It was just black. This and, this on the other side, everything black. And he took it out and he kind of handed it to me. And he said, and there were no buttons on it at all. It was just black, right? And he said, "What do you think this is?" Now, when I was in grade school, Harvey Kleiman was one of my best friends, and his father was a bigwig at Sperry. And he was one of the top guys that designed and built the UNIVAC. And during World War II, he was over at Bletchley Park as a Marine major in Intel. He knew a zillion languages, and he was there with Turing. And so, the UNIVAC was the first, what would be considered a and it was like the size of a gigantic building, had a zillion tubes, and made more noise. You needed we all had these ear things and little microphones. So you could talk to people and you could hear them, and the microphone wiped out all that background noise except for this, right? So we're at UNIVAC, and Dr. Kleiman takes us into this place, and there is the guy who wrote 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? What's his name? I always forget his name. And they're making a movie about him. He's doing a instructional thing, and he's talking. He's the UNIVAC are making a ton of noise back there, and he also has the earmuffs and the microphone. So we're hearing him in our ears, and that microphone is also going to the thing. And we were brought in to be the young scientists that were going to ask questions, right? And Dr. Kleiman kind of gave us, I wish I could think of that guy's name. He wrote 2001, he wrote a bunch of other interesting novels also. And he was, a futurist and a scientist. And anyway, so we're there, and this guy picks up a pack of cigarettes, and this is 1957, right, when he does this. And he picks up a pack of cigarettes, and he goes, and maybe 1960, because 57, I'd be 7 years old. We were in third grade, so it's probably 1960, maybe 62. So anyway, he picks up a pack of cigarettes, and he says, "In the near future, everyone will have a device this size that will be their telephone, and it will be their television, and they'll do all their business, their banking, and when they want to know something, they will ask the boss, and it will tell them." And that's what we got today. And so in 1989, they showed me a smartphone, and I said, "This is an electronic device that will be, in essence, surveillance economy. Everything that people will do, all their banking, all their buying, everything will be on that. everything they watch, instead of watching TV, they will watch it on this device, and all of their communications will be done. This will be a social media device. I used all these words in 1988 to these guys in this room that was locked up, and there's a guy outside with a gun watching the door. And, the guy who was, handcuffed, he had no idea what that thing was. He was just a body to, he had a gun to make sure no one took the brief. They'd have to chop his hand off to get that. So he was the expendable one. But the guy in a $3,000 suit, he was someone in the know. And he nearly shit a brick. Because who told you that? I said, nobody. So that's why you got me here. You got me here to take a look at something, and I'm supposed to tell you what I think about it. That's what I think about it. And that's, that kind of notched me up the ladder a bit, right? And because then I started looking at, that was the first time I went into that building. I went and looked, and then I went to conferences, right? And I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody. I was allowed to go to conference, and I was allowed to, but I couldn't socially mingle with anybody. And I then had to be debriefed. And again, right away. I didn't go home. I didn't watch TV. I didn't do anything. I would go to this conference for a day or two. I'd stay in a nice place, but I had no TV, nothing to, interfere with what I'm looking at. And then before they would debrief me. What'd you think of that? How did it do? And I would take notes, and then my boss, he would again kind of, debrief me, but like over dinner and a glass of wine, and then he would take my notes and read them, and then he would like put little questions in what I wrote, and then I would rewrite stuff, and then they had a person he had 3 secretaries, and one of his secretaries, their job was to take my stuff and translate it into the MLA, into like scholarly speak, right? And she understood my misspelling of things and my use of grammar, and she thought it was a hoot. She was the first. You're brilliant. This is like art. And I said, yeah, whatever. I just can't spell. Let's see. Crazy as hell. And like I said, left, right. There's a great book by Gary Allen called None Dare Cause Conspiracy, and he wrote it in 1968. And I met him at Georgetown when Dr. Quigley was teaching at Georgetown. And George, he was still the scholar of, the CFR, Council for Foreign Relations, who are the scholarly clowns who run the world, basically. Go check out what the CFR is, and go read Dr. Quigley's Hope and Tragedy, one of the greatest, really, and he wrote it like in the late 50s, early 60s, and really put it out to what's going on. Like he kind of described what's going on now. And at one of these conferences I went to, what's his name was there. And this was actually before Cornell, when I was with what's his name? Billy Kluver, who worked at the CFR. He got Nobel Prize for discovering background radiation, and he brought modern art to America. He had the Armory show in New York. It was a U.S. Armory in New York, right where the Museum of Modern Art is. He did this art show. He brought Duchamp and all the great, wild, crazy European modern artists to America. And that's why the Museum of Modern Art is. So he was one of my mentors from when I was 9 on, right? So he took me, and that's when I, When did Quigley die? Quigley died in the 70s. And so I went to that's when I met Wernher von Braun. I went to a conference with Billy, and what was truly interesting. This was the conference was at the Rockefeller Foundation, which is the United Nations was built by the Rockefellers on a piece of property that was adjacent to the Rockefeller Foundation. They owned the property. It was their architect that built that building, and it was the same architect who did the Amazonian capital of Brazil, Brasilia, and the Rockefellers basically own Brazil, and what goes on, in Brazil is pretty much not rubber stamped, is manifested by the Rockefeller entity. And so the CFR, Trilateral Commission Club of Rome, these are all Rockefeller and Rothschild and et al. Manifestations of the globalism that has been here since, since Albert Pike. Go look up Albert Pike, right? Looking at me on your TV from your mobile phone. Isn't that amazing, right? So that's, all of that technology is fun. It's great. It's good. I use it. I'm talking to you on it. And that's the good side of it. The bad side is the way it melts down most people. A child of 7 months old who's just learning how to toddle shouldn't be given a smartphone, and that shouldn't be that infant's connectivity through its culture through the rest of its life, And, I go out and eat in a Chick-fil-A or a McDonald's and I don't really eat in those places, but once in a while I'll go in just to check out what's going on, especially, what's the name of that? Denny's. Denny's is my go-to place to watch America. And I remember being in there, and everyone there's this family, mom and dad, 4 kids, little baby kid, right? And mom and dad, his 3 brothers, all have their smartphones, and he's looking at it. And he's like trying to get the attention of his mother, and his father's on the other side. So he's like reaching, his mother's just out of reach, but he turns to his dad and he grabs the smartphone out of his dad's hand and he whips it across Denny's. And this kid had an arm like he's probably pitching for a major league team now, and it flies across and it smashes into the concrete wall and explodes into a million pieces. And he's just his parents are like in shock, and his father's about to beat the crap out of him. And he probably would have if they weren't in a Denny's and everybody watching. And well, at the table, exactly. And everyone is, right? And I tried, when I'm in a car, I turn my phone off and put it in the glove box. And if I stop to, go into a restaurant, I don't take it with me. Because usually the Wi-Fi sucks, or, I can't, type in the password or whatever. And, I only use it when I'm in a place that I know the Wi-Fi is good, like a library or a place I'm going to go to hang that I'm hooked up to their Wi-Fi. And I'm going there for that reason, right? I mean, that restaurant, the 2 restaurants that I was in earlier this week, and I posted a little, hey, here I am in a interesting place, right? Because they had, a very good Wi-Fi that was open that I didn't have to push the buttons to get into. So there's a good side to that technology and a really, really fascist side to it, because I would say within 5 years, no one's going to own anything. Right now, BlackRock is buying up every piece of real estate it can. They're buying more single family. They're paying 20%. Why the cost of single family homes are going through the roof is because BlackRock, that's an investment company, is buying every single family home it can, so it will rent it to people. And Steven Spielberg, all of his movies are about what's coming down. Close Encounters was, pretty much, that movie was filled, because the only guys you see in the uniforms, they don't even have insignias on them. Just, they're army, they're green, and they're just doing perimeter security. Everything else is run by corporations. When the flat place where the aliens are landing, everyone's in a white overalls, and it says Boeing and Lockheed and Grumman and GE and TRW, and it's all corporations. And he did that, in 1970 something, right? So he was telling everyone, hey, kids, you live in a corporate oligarchy. And he did that film maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, Player One, where everyone has a VR screen in front of their face, and they're totally stuck in a virtual reality, and it's one gigantic. While everyone's starving and living in cardboard boxes, they got the VR screen, and it's like super luxury. So, I mean, this is where we're heading, and Steven Spielberg was made the oracle of the modern world to tell people, hey, this is what's going on. When he did, Jurassic Park, saying, hey, we can do anything genetically we want, even make dinosaurs from a mosquito stuck in, amber, so, that's what's right in front of us. That is what the corporate oligarchy wants us to live in, that kind of prison. They want to cause certain things that will, diminish the number of the useless eaters and just have enough for a good slave race, But they've been trying to do that for the last 600 years. It hasn't worked out quite well, So that is what I realized. There is this constant, unexpected consequence. They do something thinking it's going to do this, and it doesn't quite do that. And so, this thing that they did with the 19, whether it's real or not real, whether it's done on purpose, whether it was natural occurrence, whatever it was used for a kind of social engineering thing. So, they wanted to devastate the small business and just have crony capitalism is the only thing. Except, all the billionaires made, Mr. Jeff Bezos made $45 billion in less than 6 months, because nothing was being sold. The only place you could buy anything was on Amazon, So the thing is, so they locked everyone up for a year. What did it do? It gave people a moment in time to think about their life, what was going on, and why they can't get enough people to work in these crappy jobs. Is that they had a whole year to realize their freaking job was, they don't want to do that crappy job anymore. And so that's why, but the other side of the coin is they understood this. They didn't do it without realizing. They had guys like me saying, well, this is what's going to happen. And what they wanted it to do was to give the motivation because they already have the technology to, more and more jobs have left the United States and gone to China. All the crappy jobs making crap have gone there. And, but the productivity in America has just gone through the roof. Why? Why do, when everyone's dirt poor, why are the corporations making more money than they ever did? Because more of their operations are run by artificial intelligence and robots. And they have the technology to run virtually 90%, 100% of all repetitive jobs. And what's quite interesting, all those people who think they're, hot crap, like lawyers, doctors, Indian chiefs, those people are going to be the first to be replaced by artificial intelligence. I used to be a negotiator for desperate corporate lawyers. I was really good at that, being able to read people, kind of nudge people into agreeing on what was needed to be agreed to. Well, then I died in a plate of spaghetti, and it took 6 years to get back to where I could maybe go do that job again. I took out my little black book, called up my clientele, and said to them, "Hey, I'm back. Oh, we thought you were dead. Oh, it's good that you're alive." But I said, "So you got a project for me?" And everyone said, "No, we've replaced you with an app." And that's what's going to happen. So no one's going to own a car. You're going to hit your little button, and Uber will bring you a vehicle like that, and it'll drive you, fly you to across the planet, no problem, right? But if the corporate oligarchy doesn't like you so much, and this already happens in China, you could have a lot of money in the bank, but if you spit on the thing and throw garbage on the floor, if you jaywalk or do any of those kind of rules they don't want you to break, they will knock you down on your social list there. And so you can't take the bullet train. You can't take an airplane. You can't, you have to then you can't even take a bus. You have to walk. Then they take your shoes away. And you could be a millionaire and still be in that. That's how they could lock people in their houses and weld the doors closed. I mean, they have that level of control over the population. So, and they use that because China really has, everyone thinks, "Oh, scary China, oh, they're going to take over the world." Not so much, because they steal. They don't have innovative technology. I mean, they don't have their own Silicon Valley. They have factories that are knocking out silicon chips, but they're not inventing them. They steal the proprietorial knowledge, and we let them steal it because we give them stuff that's already 20 years behind. Like their whole space scene was back when the Challenger blew up, right? One reason why the space shuttle was built is because it could deliver something the size of a school bus to orbit, right? And so when the Challenger blew up, and that was totally, meaning they launched that, it was one of the coldest nights in Florida history. And they have all these parameters, that shuttle is built by like 100,000 subcontractors, right? And they all have contracts. And Morton Thiokol, that made the solid boosters, knew every parameter of those boosters. And, they had already launched, 80 things, and they already had blowholes through those rubber seals. And so they knew the parameters. And one of them that was on the contract, you do not launch anything below this temperature. Anything below 40 degrees at night, you cannot launch, period. Well, that night, things were 28 degrees, like almost 30 degrees below the set level of launch. And Dick Cheney got on a conference call to all the major contractors, and I said, "Oh, no, can't launch. Oh, we have to launch. What's his name's going to give a speech, and we need that teacher up in space because we're going to deliver Star Wars, and we have to talk about space. So we got to go." And they said, "No." And they talked, and Cheney said, "Okay, I'm going to have an executive order written that will take you off the hook. So when that thing blows up, you can't be sued." Okay? And matter of fact, you'll get it. Every one of you 20 major contractors will get $1 billion, and you'll be given another $1 trillion to build another one of these space shuttles. And so if it gets into space and doesn't blow up, he'll give the speech he's going to give. And if it does blow up, we'll have him be on there and cry tears, right? And it was recorded. And then a year or two or three, when I think H was president, it was leaked. And no one seemed to care. 6-7 years later, after it blows up, no one went to jail. No one really, it's you go look that up. You can Google that. You know, you can actually probably bring up the audio tape. Does anyone care? No. I mean, the Pandora Papers, which basically show that everyone, rich, every politician, every corporate head, every is got money hidden away in, trusts. Did anyone, and basically, especially the politicians, broke tons of laws. Any of them even, have to, worry about getting reelected? No. And it was done on purpose to basically show the basic dynamic that, sorry, kids, you're screwed, But the side band of that, which is always the case, the unexpected consequence, is that in reality, this corruption, and, our system has been corrupt since Babylon, and before Babylon, and when the Anunnaki came down, the insect gods came down and entered women, and that's the outcome of the Queen of England. If you go read David Icke, he's all over her as a reptile, and so that's the world that's there. But the world, that's all illusion. That's all ego. The only thing that exists is love's co-creation. And that's the unexpected consequence. That's the, inconvenient truth that all of this crap that everyone thinks, there's no free lunch, and that's why people go to work. You gotta be a slave. Sorry. The reality is love is all there is. That's what we're here for. That's what it's about. Right? Anyway, let's see what you're saying here. Fish is sticking with us. No, they have all of our, in order to make things, their CCP has to have a UR plan. Yep, exactly. But the thing about the CCP is that, so they have, there is nothing real there. Yeah, they got one of the largest armies, manned, but they don't. It's not, it takes C3, command, control, and communication. And they do not have that. And ours, which is the most sophisticated, is like one little EMP and we're back in the Stone Age, So, and, we were hit by a coronal ejection this summer, right? And instead of hitting, smack like in North America, or the Northern Hemisphere, it kind of hit the Pacific Ocean. Didn't quite hit China, didn't quite hit Japan, didn't quite obliterate, because the last time it happened in the 60s, Hawaii kind of lost everything, right? But they didn't have semiconductors on the time. They just had a few. And so that's kind of when, first we detonated a hydrogen bomb over Australia, which whacked a good chunk of Asia, and our military assets that were out in that, that had semiconductor chips in them, oops, what was that? What happened to that? But it wasn't, now everything has a chip in it, right? So, so China, we have 11 super carrier task forces, which means a gigantic aircraft carrier that's like 3 football fields long, half a football field wide, and has like 200 high performance fighters and bombers and airborne electronics, and then it has like 10 AG missile destroyers around it, protecting it, and number of big ships carrying resources to fuel those boats, and those aircraft carriers are nuclear powered, and we have 2 attack submarines. So this is a force. This is like, could basically blow up, because they all carry nuclear weapons, could blow up any country. We have 11 of those, and Russia and China don't even have one. I mean, they got and their aircraft carriers are have ski jumps to launch. They don't have slingshots to shoot the aircraft, so their aircraft can't take off fully loaded, so they can't do anything. People go, oh, they're going to attack, that island, Samosa, or whatever they call it, Taiwan. No, first of all, those guys are pretty well. We're giving them $200 or $300 billion of weapons every year, so they're pretty well armed and pretty well trained and pretty ready to go to kick China's ass. And China doesn't, and it's an island, and it's just far enough where logistically it would be tough to bring an army onto that island, because it would have to travel at least 200 miles to the point it would be 20 miles to get to that island. And, they would already be attacking that Navy. And if the Chinese only have one aircraft carrier and can only jump these jet aircraft that can only stay 15 minutes in the air and have no real armament, the Formosa Air Force will obliterate them. And China doesn't want to be embarrassed by this little island, right? So I don't think they're attacking them anytime soon. They make that same with Russia. Russia keeps bringing 100,000 soldiers onto the border of the Ukraine. Well, Ukraine is getting, again, about $100 million worth of Western armaments, and they're not quite in NATO. But NATO would be quite, that's the other thing. We made a deal with Mikhail Gorbachev that if we let the Russia became, a semi-democratic republic, that we wouldn't, all of those countries that were their satellites, we wouldn't bring them into NATO. But we did. Bill Clinton did that. Thank you very much, Bill Clinton, right? And Bill Clinton did more to destroy the United States. He's the guy who put everyone in jail, along with good old Jojo, the used car salesman. And it's like nothing is hidden, gang. It's all in our face. Yeah, we don't have to be petrified. We don't have to get up and down. Mega. No, it's like we can't expect anybody from that system to be the man on the white horse to save the day. What has to be is in every day and every way you as an individual have to take the piece of love's co-creation and make it stronger. It's the only thing that is keeping, why we aren't toast already? We should be. But in reality, human nature is better than the worst part of it. And so individually, your life, you have to lead to be better. That's all I do. I try to be better. Yes, I know I'm a moron. 40% of every day I'm a moron. But 60% of the day, I'm trying to do better, to be my best, right? And that's all we have to do, really, is do that. So, how did I had 1 or 2 thumbs up? How did I lose thumbs up? It's like, usually when I have a good chat and there's like 30 or 40 people who watch that show that time, and I'll be on for, right now it's an hour and 38 minutes. When I have a good chat, I'll be on maybe hour 30 minutes, maybe 2 hours 10 minutes, and the watch time will be like 15 or 20 hours, because there'll be 30 or 40 people watch it and watched it for most of the time, not just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. And I'll have 8 to 9 thumbs up. Now, I knew I had 2 thumbs up before, but now I have 0. How did that happen? Now, if I was really concerned about that, I'd be, I want to be I've been doing this for 90 years. No, sorry. That's not it. Because I'm just happy that 3 of you are here, and Fish is here, and everyone seems to be happy who's here, so that's good enough for me. But I just want to point out that there were 2 thumbs up and now there's 0. Did they take them away? It's like, really? Anyway, so when it hits, oh, there it is, 1 hour, 39 minutes and 39 seconds. When it hits 1:41:41, I'm going to go when there's 3 ones. I like it when there's still show 2. Oh, now there's 1. Okay. See, I don't know. I don't. It's what's his name? Hartman, who was murdered by his wife. The guy who was on Saturday Night Live. He had this skit called "Caveman Lawyer." Right? He was in his $1,000 suit, but he had a big 4-year-old head, and and I'm just a caveman. And then he'd be very eloquent, right? So that's me. I'm just a caveman, right? So. So it was good to see you all. I'm glad I just kind of rambled on, and hopefully the show that I did before this show gets posted up there. And because sometimes when I say things that the algorithm is shocked by, it's like that time didn't exist. Sorry. So anyway, that's how it works. But I love you guys, and again, want to get a hold of me? The dudeawake42@gmail. Want to drop something in my PayPal? dudeawake42@gmail. All lowercase, all one thing. And I love you. And I'll get my arrow down there. And I'm going to. Now it's going to be 111 all across the board. I love it when it does that. It's called numerology. Hey, MJ, I'm heading out any second now. There we go. Love you guys. Catch you later.